I was called in by the head of my services to say, we're going to do some media training with you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now, before this, there's been many meetings and there's been moments where the other services have tried to go to my CEO and try and control what guests I have on my podcast. They were, so a complete organization, nothing to do with my podcast or my platform, were trying to control the guests I have on my podcast, which I find absolutely crazy. Yeah. But there was multiple things that happened, right? And one day I'll go into it all. But eventually it came down to that I was going to have a media training, and it was going to be like a podcast, and it was going to be the CEO of my agency and someone else. When I went there, there was like four of us in the room, 2 people I didn't ask to be there as well. And they said, we're going to start asking you some questions now. And I said at the beginning, I said, that's fine. I said, but who are you asking me this as? Are you asking me as Cullan Mais, the Kaleidoscope employee? Or are you asking me as Cullan Mais, this, my personal opinion? Which one is it? And they wouldn't tell me. They wouldn't tell me. It was like they were trying to purposely trip me up. And it started quite like, vague questions like, what do you think of drug addicts? Then it went on to, what do you think of pedophiles? And he was like, well, look, I don't agree with pedophiles. I think they have a safe place in hell for them. But working for a service, I know that we have a lot of pedophiles that access our services, and we have to work with them. Yeah. So it was trying to give it two-worded, like a double-edged sword.
Are they trying to catch you out because they're hoping that you're right wing and the right wing don't like the pedos?
Yeah.
And so you would refuse to work with them? And
yeah, then they started asking me, what do you think of the burqa? Then it was, like literally, what has this got to do with my job? Yeah.
Do you get many people coming in a burqa who are addicted to drugs?
No, this is the funny thing about it. This is like the funniest thing. Like,
have to get it under the thing.
Well, the saddest thing about it is these people hate the working class. These people hate British people, but that's 99.9% of the people who are paying their bills. The reality is 99.9% of people who are addicted to drugs living on the streets are British people. So these people that they pretend to care for, they actually hate.
Yeah.
That's what's sad.
You should have had to ask them questions for half an hour. Right. Go on. No, you've asked me stuff. Now you guys, do you actually care about the British people? Do you? Prove it to me.
Yeah. And it became like, I actually had emails come out of nowhere on the rise because of the rise of the far right. We are putting you through far right extremist training. And I actually replied and said, this is great. I'd love to go on this because I actually want to know what you think far right is. By the way, will you be doing far left extreme training as well? Because I've been attacked by left extremists in my workplace, and I would really like to get to the bottom of this. And I had no reply. They didn't invite me to the far right, and they didn't say anything about the far left. But what came to that loggerhead was that meeting, and it got really, really quite. It ended ended up talking about Nigel Farage and stuff, and I was like, "What has this got to do with my podcast and what I do in my job as a drug worker?" Because the reality was, I was an amazing drug worker. People loved me. People related. People felt like they could trust me, and I was being judged for something totally different. And it ended up getting quite nasty. And I actually said, regardless of what you think is true or not true, because he was trying to say there's no illegal migration problem. He was trying to get to all this stuff, yeah? And I said, regardless of what you think, this is what the British public are actually scared of. I'm saying to him, like, the people who access your services are living on the streets. Some of them are accessing hostels on floor space, and they're seeing people come into this country living in 4-star, 5-star hotels, getting housed before them. I said, regardless of what you think, this is what your people who are accessing your services think. And I said, one way or another, one day it's going to go off. And they went, time, let's leave it there. And I went out for a cigarette, and I had a missed call off my partner, and I answered the phone, and she phoned me crying. And I was like, what's the matter? And she said, 6 kids have just been stabbed in Southport. So it was like, we've just had this massive interview with this conversation in my work about it's going to go off and whatever. And then these kids got stabbed in Southport. And I went away for a week straight after that on holiday. So in their heads, they must have thought, what the fuck is going on here? Like, he's actually right. What he's saying, And I came back, and it was just the rhetoric of, you know, I actually thought maybe they could understand what I was saying, but instead they were all far right, like the media said and stuff. And I got pulled into the room again and said, look, I think we need to have a chat. I think you need to start thinking what you want to choose, whether that's your podcast or the organization. And I said, well, I don't want to choose any of them. Like they both mean so much to me. Like one's my left arm, one's my right arm. I've started them both at the same time. That's my job. That's my hobby. Like, why have I got to choose out of one of them? You know, do I choose what you do in your spare time, or who you vote for, or you know, what football team you support? No, like why have I got to suffer here? And it got really on top. I was told that like certain people didn't want me there, you know, by certain staff members who I won't obviously name. And the last straw was I went to a service event that I was part of organising, and when I went into this event, 90% of the people there were people that didn't like me, ignored me, thought I was a racist, thought I was a homophobe, thought I was transphobic, thought I was Islamophobic, all because of my podcast. And I had a breakdown, mate. I actually had a mental breakdown. And I went home and, I phoned in sick and said I can't come into work. And it was just, it all got too much for me, mate. Really, really got too much for me. One of the things that I was told as well, just quickly, was the staff member who said, we've had a chat and we think you need to choose one or the other. They said they've had a board meeting, and like one of the employees there is like a real Stonewall. Is it Stonewall? Yeah.
The charity.
Yeah. He's really staunch on that. There's this woman who they've just employed who is a Muslim, lovely lady. I got on with her like a house on fire, but apparently she's scared to walk around because of the riots and stuff. And your name got brought up in the board meeting, saying how, you know, these riots were the direct responsibility of someone who Cullan's friends with. And when I said who, and they went Tommy Robinson, and I interviewed Tommy Robinson 2 years ago on a podcast. What are you on about? I said, number one, how is he responsible for the riots? And number two, what has it got to do with it? Like, I said, what? I said, if Louis Theroux interviews the KKK, does that mean like he's part of the KKK now? And they just don't understand it. They just haven't got grips with it at all. And that was it. That was the last straw for me. I couldn't go back into work. I was that close to going back to heroin and stuff. And I was off for 6 months. And I don't work there now.
what a way to treat, you know, you were the icon of what they were doing.
Yeah.
What a way to treat you. Unbelievable. And that's why I say this is the archetype of exactly, I want to look good, but not do good. That's what they're doing by pushing you out. They don't want to try and understand. They think they know better, and they've pushed you out.
Yeah.
That's gutting, man. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I actually, like, I have a criminal record. I can't just get a job anywhere. To me, that was my life, you know, that there was my job. And I was envisioned that this is what I'm going to do. And do you know what? They used to gaslight me and say, you don't belong in services anyway. You're going to go far with your podcast. That's where you belong. And I'm like, who are you to tell me like what I want?